Okay, I think we have everybody. All right. Just want to welcome all of you. My name's Kathy Frame. I've been director of the United States Biology Olympiad. That was my former position in quotes. Did that for about 11 years. And now I'm the advisor and consultant for the United States Biology Olympiad, Bio Olympiad, excuse me, we had to change our name. And I serve as a consultant and advisor not only to it, but to the Center for Excellence in Education. With me is Michelle King. She's on full screen here. And she's the manager who hails from Oklahoma State University. We are so pleased that all of you took time out this evening to be here for this webinar on proctoring for the USABO exam. As you are aware, there are a plethora of methods for proctoring exams. The in-person format, which is what we're all familiar with and which we did until March 2020, when COVID became an everyday word in all of our vocabularies. Nowhere was it more prevalent than in the field of education, all right? And the effect and the impact that it's had on it is enormous to this day. We welcome you to the virtual world right now. Some of you may have face-to-face classes, others 100% virtual, some hybrid. There might be some other variations that you have amongst them as well. The USABO exams this year will all be online. This is the very first time we've ever had this happen. Our partner with this is the Art of Problem Solving, AOPS, and they are going to administer the exams. With previous USABO exams, you, the teachers and test administrators, fulfilled the positions of both the proctor and the administrator. Now you're going to have the sole role of being the proctor. And we hope to provide some insight into some of that virtual proctoring systems for you tonight. The panel is made up of your peers who have volunteered to share their knowledge and their expertise with systems that they are familiar with. And we do hope that the information you hear this evening will prove to be very helpful for each of you. The panel will be introduced in order of their presentations. You will be muted, and to assist with bandwidth, we ask that you also keep your video off. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A section in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Questions will be answered at the conclusion of the panel. Please note that the panel is being recorded and will be available on the USABO website on Monday as a YouTube link. Thank you for your attention. It might be available a little earlier, but I'm saying Monday just in case. All right. The first one is going to be Jason Brown. He hails from Clemson University. He is a senior lecturer in physics and astronomy at Clemson University, and he's had a test center there for the USABO for a number of years. He's going to be speaking to you on Webex Proctoring. Jason.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. And do you mind if I share my screen or?
Please do.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is kind of get into Webex. Now, your institution actually has to have an account with Webex, and Clemson University has an account with Webex. And so the reason why I was thinking about using Webex is because I was having a little trouble with Zoom getting some of the email invites to work. So that may be just an institutional thing. However, what I'm going to do here, can you guys see my screen?
It's blank.
Oh, it's blank. Okay. I am sharing the screen. So is it still blank?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's probably not too important that I actually show show scheduling a meeting, because if people are thinking about using Webex, they probably are used to scheduling a meeting. But really what I wanted to go over in this meeting as far as proctoring goes is when you go into Webex, well, first off, you need to send an email to all of your competitors, all the students that are taking the exam, and I believe it's February the 11th at 4 p.m. Is that correct? And that's strict for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to send them an email, the sooner the better. Now, I have not done so myself, and I need to do it myself, but we've got about less than a month now, so I'm going to do it probably today or tomorrow. Send them an email to let them know that, in fact, in the email, you want to provide a WebEx link. So you're going to have to create a meeting, and people still cannot see my screen. Is that correct?
No, they cannot.
Okay, so I do apologize, but hopefully somebody that is going to do the Zoom portion of this this webinar is who is doing that? Was that somebody
Henry,
here in this group?
yeah,
I'm sorry,
Henry Chen.
Henry Chen. Henry, if you would share your screen, setting up a meeting for WebEx is very similar to setting up a meeting for Zoom. So what you really want to do first, before you email your students that are taking the USABO on,
Jason,
yes.
someone said they think you're sharing your whiteboard.
Am I sharing my whiteboard? Oh, great. Let me stop that real quick. So you see, I'm not very proficient on. Yes, I am. Huh. That is odd. Let me see if I can. Oh, see, I am not very proficient in sharing in Zoom. I'm more proficient in sharing with WebEx. So let's see if I can find a way to do this. Yeah, I'll share this my WebEx screen. How about that? Does that sound good?
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to go sign in. I bet you most WebEx screens look pretty much the same. And then what you want to do is you want to schedule a meeting. Hit schedule. And of course, you want to put a meeting topic that's very important here that the students will know, and that's USABO join link or something more descriptive, but I'm just going to put that down here. And if you do have your emails of your attendees, and you should be able to download that from your roster at the USABO website, the teacher or the manager part of it. You can put the email list of students in here for your attendees. Then just go ahead and schedule it. So February, I'm not going to schedule it, but I'm just going to show you what to do here. So February 11th, and we want to start it at 4 p.m. Now, that being said, I would probably recommend we do this, why don't we get the students in earlier than 4, so we can essentially start the exam as close to 4 as possible. So maybe 3:30 or 3:45 would probably be a little bit better. And then, the duration is, what is the time limit on the USABO again?
It's 50 minutes for the exam.
50 minutes for the exam. So when you put an hour here, it doesn't mean that the meeting is going to stop in an hour. That's just the rough duration for our WebEx meeting. The WebEx meeting is not going to immediately close in 1 hour. Okay. And then once you're done with all of that and you scheduled it, just go ahead down here. Let me move the video out of the way here, but then you hit schedule. And not only are you going to put the students' emails in this slot right here for those that are participating in the competition, but you want to send a separate email. And when you actually schedule this, I can go ahead and schedule it because I can cancel it too. So I wanted to have a little more thought on actually doing mine, but let me just go ahead and hit schedule here. And because I wanted to put the emails in there. So it is scheduled. And once it's scheduled, there should be a meeting link. And so you want to copy that link. And then you want to go and do another email to the participants with using your email system, probably with a blind carbon copy, and tell them that they need to join this link before 4 p.m. because we want to get started with the exam as close to 4 p.m. as possible. And you want to include this link so that they can click on it. So they actually will get 2 copies of this link, one from the WebEx scheduler and one from yourself. And it's important that you probably send one for yourself as well, with some instructions on what to do with WebEx. The instructions, since I can't really open this meeting up and show people, but you really want to do a gallery view of the students. You want to be able to see all the students. And also in that email, you want to ask the students to make sure that they have some sort of camera on their computer. And that's why we've got to email them as soon as possible, because most students will probably have a camera, but a webcam that they could fix to their screen or something like that, those things are pretty cheap. They can get those at Best Buy. But for proctoring, we really need to be able to see the student and what they're doing. That is, we need to hear their audio to make sure they're not talking to anybody. We need to see them to make sure that that no one else is in the room, giving them answers or anything like that, or their parents or their friends are sitting next to them, feeding them the answers or helping them with the exam. And so you want a gallery view of your students taking the exam. So you just like the little pictures that we see today with the Zoom. And it's pretty straightforward to do that in WebEx. I don't think I'm going to go over all those details. If you're having trouble seeing the student, and I believe that there are no calculators allowed, is that correct? Or
They
a very
have non-programmable.
non-programmable calculator. So another thing that you want to do is have them kind of put their non-programmable calculator in front of the camera, so we can see it right before the exam, to make sure that they don't have a fancy calculator that can do fancy stuff, programming stuff and stuff like that. So I would recommend doing that. If you're having trouble seeing a student, I probably want to keep the audio to a minimum. So for example, if a student goes off camera, and just because they moved over a little bit or something like that, and you want to get the attention of the student, what I do when I proctor my students at Clemson University when they're taking an exam is I say, could you check your chat? And I say the name, like Joey Bishop or whatever. Could you check your chat? And then I type in, could you please move? And then I type in the chat privately, could you please move your camera so that we can see you? That's something that I've noticed in proctoring, web proctoring. And that's pretty much it. I do have a help session for my students at 7 p.m. So I realized that you wanted to have questions after we do the seminar. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Could conceivably people send me an email with questions if
Sure.
they're interested?
Sure.
Because I will indeed have to run around 6:45 or so, maybe 6:40.
Okay, we'll have them put them in the Q&A, and then we'll send them to you to answer. Okay?
Oh, okay, that would be great. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen then. Now, Kathy, that being said, did I miss anything that you might think is important?
I think you made some really good points. I'm sure that the rest of them will too, but the idea of them being off screen using the chat to make sure
Yes.
that they come back on. That way you don't have to worry about
Right,
everything.
right. Oh, I did want to mention one thing is that we have to, when the time limit is up, is there a timer on the AOPS?
It's just going to cut right off.
It will cut right off. So please warn your students about that as well, because if it does cut right off, they don't have a timer. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so that's another reason why you want to start like right at 4, so
I'm saying that a little prematurely. All right, knowing ALPS, they probably have something there.
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
them know.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but it would be kind of nice, for example, if you start right at 4, whatever time you start at, close to 4, is that you could say, guys, that there's like 10 minutes left. You might want to start thinking about finishing up, something like that. So
That's
that
what you do when you regularly proctor,
exactly what you do when you
30
regularly
minutes,
proctor. Yeah.
15, 10, 1 minute to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. All I'd like to say. Hopefully that you found that helpful.
Very, thank you very
Good,
much.
good.
Okay. All right. So our next person is Shilpa Chowdhury and her daughter. Sumatres. I'm probably murdering her poor name. All right. And what's really interesting is her daughter was in the USABO for 4 years. All right. And she moved up to being the head of her club. And I encourage all of you to have a club with your kids. It's just a great way for them to get together and study together. And it just develops a camaraderie, all right, with it. So Shilpa, I'll let you start.
Thank you, Kathy, for a wonderful introduction. Yes, of course, these are our generation and we are getting represented by them. Thank you so much. Beautiful. So with this note, I will start. Yes, of course, I'm a teacher at SIBA. I started my career 20 years before as a professor at UConn, and of course, wanted to influence young brains and then moved to school teaching 3 years before. And my kids, my own kids are my encouragement, as you can see over here. They encouraged me to move into the school system and influence young brains. And here I am now. Good evening, everyone. And I would like to talk about Google Meets and its gadgets and how proctors can use those gadgets to proctor an exam. And it is a very simple program, and many of the teachers all along throughout United States have the Google Suite. So they can easily get onto the Google Suite for scheduling a meeting. And I would walk you through step by step how to schedule meeting. And my daughter will be watching the chat so that she can keep answering people as they're asking questions. So let me quickly share my screen at this point. And oops, sorry about that. And one of you will tell me if you can see my screen properly. Okay. Here you go. So if you see it over here, there is those people who are accustomed to a little bit on the Google Suites. They already know that where the calendar for the Google Suite is, but I will walk you through with that piece. So on the right hand side, if you look, you will see this waffle. And on this waffle, if you hit, you will be able to see all the gadgets for the Google Suite. And in that gadget, you will see somewhere in the center that there is a calendar over here. And that's the way to start with a Google Meet meeting with the students, inviting them to appear for the exam. So like, as you can see over here in my calendar, there are a few people, but I'll show you. If you look on the left-hand side, if you hit create, on top, if you hit create, then you can easily add an event when you want to schedule a meeting with the students for this exam. There's time over here. And as Jason beautifully brought it, yes, of course, call the students like 15, 20 minutes early before the exam or even more than that. You can easily set up the time even for later until, like say, for example, this exam is beginning at 4 p.m., then you can call them from 3:30 to say 5:30. The Google Meets doesn't dissolve, so it stays. It's not like Zoom said that the meeting is just set for that particular time. It can be extended easily. You don't have to extend it. It can easily go along. How you're going to add people. So you will first add Google Meet video conferencing. As you do that, you will be able to invite your guest over here, which is the roster of your students. Once you are done, you're going to save that meeting, and it is going to ask for a prompt, and it is going to send that invite to your students as a complete roster. The other way, what I would suggest, and since being a teacher, I can suggest you that people misuse Google Meets a lot. Google Meets extension or link stays for at least 90 days, even past you have used it. So what happens is if a student wants to misuse that link, he or she can easily misuse even after its usage. So most of the teachers, what they do, they create a Google Classroom. And I will walk you through with that piece. Like I have created this Google Classroom, and I will create a Google Meets link inside that classroom. I'll be sending the link to the students of that Google Classroom so that they can just get onto the link and then get onto the Google Meets. On that banner, you can see over here, the link is already created. How do you create that link? You again go back to that setting piece, which is on the Google Classroom, and you keep scrolling down. If you see, there is a Google Meets invitation point over here. Now you will create the Google Meets link, which will show up as a banner on the Google Classroom, and you'll be inviting all the students from the roster in that Google Classroom. You will hit off, and what is going to happen, all those students will not be able to operate Google Meets link until they are ready for the exam. So you will switch this on at the last minute when you want your students to be in the Google Meet so that they don't misuse that feature. So if I show you how my Google Classroom will look like now, initially it was on and now this piece is off. So until unless I hit it as a host, they cannot access this. After the exam, you're going to again switch this off so that they cannot use this feature anymore. So I would suggest that scheduling a meeting, all those teachers who are actually proctoring through Google Meets, they must schedule a meeting through the Google Classroom. And if they have any questions later on, they can easily email me and I can help them how to create Google Classrooms. Now, let's walk back into the Google Meets where the major proctoring will begin. Let me walk you through the gadgets over here. What are the different gadgets where the host has a control? So if you look on the left-hand side corner, this piece is called as, this lock system is called as host control. If you open this panel, you will be able to see that there are three features what a host can control. One is the quick access. That means it's the same as Zoom, like the Zoom waiting room. If you don't want any outside people or any outside student to get in, say for example, because students, they do all those things. And if you do not recognize that person, you will just put this access off. So initially it is on, but around say 10 minutes before the meeting, you will switch this off. And once you switch this feature off, you will be able to see on the screen right in the middle, say for example, if my daughter Sanmari wants to get in, I will be able to see her first and the last name, and as well as see, the system will ask me, do you want to admit this person or not? And at that point, I will be able to admit the person or deny the person if I'm not able to recognize the student who is entering or appearing for the exam. The other control over here is sharing of the screen. Sometimes students, as when they're giving the exam, they would misuse this feature and show their screen to other students. Sometimes even the proctors can miss this piece. So in that case, what you can do is you can put the share feature off and like 5 minutes before the meeting starts. The other piece is send chat messages. As you know, students, they do spam chats. They do also send small notes and messages, sometimes even secret notes to share answers with each other. So in that case, you can also put this feature off at that point. Now, I will quickly show you that whatever settings I have been talking about there, also you can open them and do the same thing as I was showing you in the previous panel. So this is about the host control. As I was reading through the chat messages, yes, of course, in this case, you cannot send a private message to the student. So what you will be doing is when you put a chat message, it's going to go to everyone. So right from the beginning, I would suggest all the proctors to inform the students that they must leave their camera on. And it is very easy on the Google Meets how to leave their camera on. As if you see over here, these are the panels. Now, if I will leave this on, this is going to put my mic on over here. As you can see that my mic is on, and this can be easily operated by hitting Control D. The other piece is your camera on. If the students will hit Control E, they will be able to have this piece on as their camera on. Now, the whole Meets will show their initials and as well as their camera on feature and as well as their mic on feature. The last system what I want to talk about on the Google Meets is the roster. How will you be able to see that all students are in the as a contestant or as the participant over here? So if you look on the right-hand side, add people, and I'm sorry about that. If you look over here, all the way on the top, just right before add people, these are, it will suggest you the number of people and as well as give you the complete roster of your participants. As you can see that I'm one of the participants over here. More than that, what you can also do is if you have a Google Suite from the school program, you will get a Google Meet information that how many students attended the Google Meets, from what time to what time, and how many times they left the meeting and how many times they chimed in back again. So Google Meets will send you a message through your email on that so that you can keep a close eye that if a student left the meeting or was cheating due to some reason. So these are the main ones. And I can also show you this feature about raise hand. So if a student has a question, just in case right before the meeting, you can simply ask the students or send them those instructions. They can raise hands for questions. Say, for example, if a student is not able to hear you properly for all those instructions, you can also turn on captions and student will be able to read all your messages in different languages too. And there is a software that is available that you can use for different languages too. I would like to show you one more panel over here on those 3 dots. And if you look into these 3 dots, these are some of the control panels. You can record the meeting and as well as you can change the layout. As Jason brought up this piece that, yes, of course, observing the students is very important. So you will hit change layout and you will be able to see 4 settings over here. Make sure, say, for example, there are more than 20 students, you will put yourself in the tiled mode. The tile mode is going to tell you how many students in that classroom or how many students attending that Google Meets at that point. You can easily increase the number. Say, for example, that day 50 students were appearing through Google Meets. You can increase that number at that point. So these are some of the gadgets, and I'm happy to answer questions after the meeting or.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Well done. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Jamie Skipka. All right, another physics teacher. All right, she's from Simsbury High School. All right, and she's going to talk about the Chromebook and Go Guardian, which monitors it. It's something that's specifically for her state. Jamie.
Hi, so yeah, like I've actually never participated in an Olympiad before, so this is a very odd first time. But what we use generally, so for our state testing, and I hope that somebody can, if somebody's from Connecticut or from a state that uses the secure browsing software, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what our state testing has a secure browser where, you know, your network administrator installs it and then and then it's run, students can only open that one website on their Chromebook, which is wonderful. So it's great for the state testing. But the problem is that the students need to actually be in school connected to the network that's been set up by the systems administrator, from what I understand. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. So that means that we actually can't use that method for this test. But the nice thing about Go Guardian is that it can be used from anywhere. So Go Guardian is actually software. And I guess I could share my screen here. So let me see. So this is classrooms. Okay, so Go Guardian, I'll show you what the website looks like, so this is like the login screen when you go in there. And essentially what you do is you can sync it up with Google Classroom. So if you teach through Google Classroom, now if you're going to use this, you do need to get permission from parents and from your administration to monitor student devices. And it's best if it's the school run devices, because you get those permissions a whole lot easier. But essentially it keeps track of every single website that the kids have visited the entire time that you're keeping track of them, which is great. So you can see where they've been to for how many minutes. So if they're jumping onto other websites, you'll be able to see that. And there will be a whole summary for you after you're done monitoring your class. Now, the thing to be cognizant of is that it is possible for students to open up hidden browsers. So like if students are idle for a long time, then you're going to want to, check in with that student and make sure that they're not accessing something that they should not be accessing. But I was also thinking about my time as proctoring Regents exams in New York State for 12 years. And this one time in Brooklyn, there was a student who, you know, thought they were being slick and had the phone under the table. And that phone was removed by the dean, and they actually had another one in their pocket, and they managed to do it again. So as we're talking about having students with their cameras on and monitoring them through that, that's kind of going through my head for, you know, if a kid really wants to, it's in their lap, and it'll be very easy to fool the camera. So I'm wondering if it would make sense to use Google Classroom where they actually log in from their phone and kind of have it so that you can see their screen and their hands. So then it's a lot easier to tell if something funny is going on. But I'm not sure if that's overkill or not. So that's just kind of my perspective from having, you know, having proctored many exams and kind of seen every method of cheating possible through my years. So what I would say is GoGuardian is a great tool. And I think that that's probably the easiest way to see if students are, you know, actually interacting with only the test. And if they're active on there, I guess that you wouldn't really need much more than that. I think with Google Classroom and GoGuardian, that probably should keep track of everything. But like I said, with GoGuardian, you do need to have permissions from your school and from parents that students' actual devices would be monitored. And then, you know, Google Classroom, you already saw a presentation about that. So, and I know that GoGuardian also has a free trial that's set up. So you can look into that. You can see the, so if you just search for GoGuardian on the internet, then it'll pop up. And then you can see where the kids have been online. So I actually came to here, I agreed to present, but I was actually more hoping that I'd get more clarification from all of you about what a best method would be for doing this, to be honest. So I hope that was somewhat helpful. GoGuardian is what I'm intending to use in combination with Google Classroom in some way.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Let me stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay, we have next, we have Janet Wolfe. She's from Conestoga High School, Berwyn, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. She has been teaching for 27 years in science, biology related, all those things. Right now, she's presently teaching anatomy and physiology and AP research. That latter sounds really interesting to me. All right, so take it away there.
Thanks. It is a great class, by the way. I learned a lot in that AP research class. Okay, so I'm the Microsoft Teams person, and I'll be honest with you, and I told Kathy, we're not allowed to require our kids to have their cameras on a normal classroom. Like I will for this test, but so I was along the same vein that I'm hearing. I'm curious to see how you guys do this because I've never had to watch them take a test before. So I don't necessarily have any, you know, advice on how to do that. But as far as Teams goes, and I can share, there's not much I can really share on the screen, but if I can go to, where am I? I'm over here. Okay. So I have, let's see, what can you guys see? Because I'm now just seeing, can you see my screen? My team screen or no?
I see you.
Well, do you see, but are you seeing me on the Zoom or are you seeing my team screen? I can't
I see your
see.
screen, yeah, because I see on the
Okay.
side it says Janet Wolfe.
Right, so like you can see the side of my face as opposed
Correct.
to the front of my face. All right, so I thought I could share my whole second screen.
Okay, so someone's saying use your other camera.
Well, here's the problem is I have my daughter's laptop hooked up because I don't have a second camera hooked up to my laptop. I should have brought my other camera in, but I forgot to bring that home. So let me hold on. Let's come back here. All right, I am, and this is all, no, that's all I want to see. Hold on. Okay, now I'm all messed up. All right. Okay, so I guess this is not going to work with me sharing my screen.
You had it originally.
Because I can't see what you're seeing is my problem. Like in Zoom, like I guess my problem is with Zoom more than it is with Teams. But anyway, so for Teams, I don't know how you guys set your teams up, but if you have a class already or a club, like I have my bio club is who is going to take the Olympiad. And so they have to be part of the club in order to take the tests. And so I'll just start my bio club meeting a little bit before 4. If you don't have like a team made already for the group that's going to be taking the test, then you can send out invitations just like any other meeting platform that has been discussed already tonight. So you can set up a meeting that way. And one of the things that I know in Teams, you can spotlight people. So if you think a kid might be up to something kind of shady, then you can spotlight them and make them bigger. So there is a spotlight feature. It would be right next to their name. So if you can see that I'm clicking on Lily Wolfe's name, you can spotlight her. Oops. So you could blow, a particular kid up and see what they're doing. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what else we would need to know that's different than the other platforms for Teams. It's pretty much just like any of the other kind of, meeting platforms. So I think that's about it. That's all I had.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Really
I will
appreciate
stop
it.
sharing my screen. There we go.
Right. So next up is Henry Chen. All right, he's a sophomore at Stanford. He's a USABO alum from the years 18 and 19. That means he was a USABO finalist. He was an IBO medalist as well. So he's got lots of experience with that. He also came to our rescue, the program's rescue, and helped us with the first online semifinal we had and our first round of the finals itself, and then the final exams. So he's got a lot of experience, all right, as using Zoom and proctoring. And also I have to say he was a TA, a teacher's assistant, all right, for us as well. So Henry, it's your floor.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Mrs. Frame. Let's see if I can share screen. All right, let me know if that's not showing, but I'll be covering Zoom proctoring, so I'll give a sort of rundown of how we did it last year. As Mrs. Frame said, we developed a procedure for the semifinal and the final exams, which were remote. So it might be a little bit different since AOPS is managing it this year, but you should receive some student info before the exam with their like Usabo IDs, maybe some instructions as well. And then main idea throughout proctoring is that the proctor should be able to see the students, but students should not be able to see each other. All right. So just some scheduling stuff for Zoom. I've tried to include some screenshots. Unfortunately, I can't screen share a Zoom meeting inside of a Zoom meeting, but hopefully these will work. So for scheduling the meeting, you want to follow this general set of settings. Just some things to know. It might be good to just screenshot this, but you want audio to be computer audio, and for the advanced options, you want to set enable waiting room, and then you want to disable joining before host. So basically, students will be put in a waiting room when they join, and they won't be able to join the meeting before you enter it. Right. And then depending on how we do it, this is the way we did it last year. So students had, they were instructed to join the meeting with a primary and a secondary device. So the primary device could be like a laptop, the one they're using to take the exam on. And the secondary device might be like a phone or something so that we can also see the laptop screen. Not sure if Zoom for Teachers has functionality so that you can see what's going on student screens without this, but this is how we did it without that. And so what we did was we assigned each student in our proctor group a testing number. So, if saying like Miss Frame is a student, she would be like student number 1. And then her first device would be called 1 primary and her second device would be called 1 secondary. And
Henry,
Mhm.
I've been asked to have you slow down just a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. A fast talker. So with these testing numbers, what they're essentially for is when the students join the meeting, while they're in the waiting room, you should instruct them to and make sure that they change their names, like their Zoom names, to these formats. So either like number, comma, or number dash primary or number dash secondary for each of their devices. And we also, so what we did last year was we sent all the students in our groups emails with all of this information. So their testing number, naming instructions, as well as the Zoom link that we set up through here, and a link to Usabo student instructions we had last year. Not sure totally how that's going to work this year, but just one thing to note there is that we always used blind copies when sending emails. So we would BCC all of the students to keep anonymity. All right. And then when you're actually starting either the practice or the open exam, you're going to want to join the meeting before students. So maybe like 15 minutes early. And then when you join, you should set chat settings like this. So you should open the chat, go to the like view more options, the ellipses, and then uncheck host, or excuse me, you should check host only. That's a little typo there. And what that does is just to make sure the students can only message you and not each other. All right, and then I'll sort of walk through, we had a pretty elaborate check-in procedure that I'll try to walk through here. I think not totally sure again how it'll be this year, but this is what we did last year. So during check-in, you should have 2 instances of Zoom open. So the way most of us did this was joining Zoom on our computer and then joining Zoom also on our phone. So we would be in the meeting twice, similar to the students. And then during the check-in process, we would stay in the main room with our Zoom on the computer. And what we did was we would spotlight our own video. So if you go to like a participant's camera and then click the ellipses, there should be like a spotlight option when you're a host. And we would spotlight our own videos so that students can only see our video and not other students' videos. And then in the main room, we would go to participants, so the participants tab, and then mute all, just to make sure there's no like talking going on during the check-in process. And we would also go to participants, the more button, and then uncheck the setting that allows participants to unmute themselves. So basically muting them and then making sure they're still muted. And then we would create 1 breakout room for check-in. So you go to the bottom sort of bar of your Zoom screen, click breakout room, make sure there's only 1 room, and then follow the settings here. So you're signing manually, and then you create the breakout room. And then what we would do in these in this single breakout room is essentially like take each student into it one by one. So we'd have their primary and their secondary device join the breakout room after they were admitted into the meeting. And with that, we would set them up for check-in inside of the breakout room, separate from all the students that are either in the waiting room or in the main room. Right. And the way we did that was to allow both of the students' devices into the main room and then immediately assign them into the breakout rooms using the buttons listed here. Right. And then for check-in, we would tell the students to unmute from their secondary devices only, so likely from their phones, and then to also reduce the secondary device volume just to silent, just to make sure that there's no sort of like feedback going on from two different audio sources. And then we went through this check-in procedure for the students. I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit here to make it more visible, more readable. But what we wanted to do was verify the student's identity. So we just asked them to pull out like a driver's license or a school ID. We verified their Usabo number. So that's that, I can't remember how many digits, but it should just be a string of digits for each student. We would verify that they were using the Zoom web client on their primary device. So this would be their laptop normally. And how we did that was just ask them to point their phone, their secondary device at their laptop just to check that they're using Zoom on a browser instead of Zoom on like the Zoom application. And let's see. Oh yeah, and then we would make sure the students were not wearing headphones and they didn't have timers or like stopwatches they were wearing just for security. And then more importantly, we would ask them to do a 360-degree view of their testing area. So we would ask them to show sort of all around what was going on in the room. And then we'd ask them to set up their secondary camera so that I think there's a question about this, but we want to make sure that there's a clear view of both the student's hands, desk, and screen from the secondary camera. And then from the primary camera, the laptop, sort of like how we're seeing right now in the Zoom meeting, it should just be the student's face. All right. And then after that check-in is done, the student should leave the breakout room and then go back to the main room where they should be muted. All right, and then this is like an example of an acceptable testing view for students. So as we can see, like there's no glare and we can see both devices as well as the student's hands and their face. And then if I know like joining Zoom might be new to some people, so if you're confused on how to join from web, when you click a Zoom link to open, it'll ask you if you want to open zoom.us. And if you don't want to, you should click cancel and then join from your browser. That's how you join Zoom from the web instead of the application. All right, and then during the exam, we would unmute all secondary devices and we would tell them to keep that volume lowered on the secondary devices to avoid feedback. Do another 360-degree check just to make sure we're okay before starting. And then we would send the password to students via Zoom chat. I think this might change depending on how AOPS is managing it. But during the exam, once everything started, we would monitor students by pinning each student's video while we're in speaker view, and then sort of cycling through all of the devices to just cycle through each device and make sure what was going on looked correct. And just to distinguish, we would be pinning the video and not spotlighting the video. Pinning is for your view only, spotlighting shows that video to everybody else in the meeting. And then ending the exam, once time is up, we would announce the test has stopped and students should submit their exam and any feedback forms, which might just be done automatically through the AOPS portal. And then after that, we would end the Zoom meeting for all, and that should wrap it up.
Okay, they're asking why there's so many extra steps for the Zoom.
Right,
It was by USABO alums.
We're sort of, I think there might be more like details about check-in procedures and stuff later on, but I wanted to sort of walk through that right now as well.
And what it did for us, because it ensured the integrity, all right, of the exam itself, because we were questioned by some of the universities about the scores that we received for our students. And once the process was explained to them, they accepted that. Others competitions didn't have quite the stringent ones that they had. And they're asking if they have two devices. For the Zoom itself, we did have two devices, right, Henry? I mean, now I used it all the way through the IBO too, when we did that there. Okay, so I think we're done. All right, and now we're just open up to questions. Michelle has been collecting those, and we'll start addressing them and ask the panel to help with answering those. Michelle?
Awesome. Thank you so much for passing it off, Kathy. So we received a number of questions through the survey. I just wanted to note that this session is going to be focused on the specific proctoring focused questions. If there are any questions that require details from CE to provide about the exams, practice exams, AOPS, we will be following up with at a later time. And if you have any additional questions, please submit them to the Q&A, and we can either get them answered either through the Q&A function or verbally. So for the panel, the first question that we have is, what is the average number of students that you suggest that they proctor? Panelist, who would like to answer this one?
I'm happy to jump in just based on what we did previously. I think it was like 10 to 15 students. Um, and always like less is easier to proctor, but I think that was like a reasonable number. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Janet, how many students do you proctor?
I'm here, I swear. I have this year, actually, I've only checked my roster once. I think I maybe have 18 or 20, but I know all of them because they're all in the bio club. So like for me, checking IDs, I don't have to do any of that because I know who they all are. But yeah, but I would say it's not more than 20 for sure.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we have another question, which is generally about how you ensure that you're upholding the integrity of the exam. And I'll just open this up to all the panelists. Henry, would you like to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I think to uphold the integrity of the exam, although like what we did last year was a little bit more involved, and make sure that you can see, the student's face and their like mouth and eyes where they're pointing, and also their hands and their computer screen and their or like and have knowledge that their phone is like not in their hand or anything. So that should cover most of what's going on. I think also with like having one of the devices unmuted, that is another check to make sure someone's not like sitting outside of the camera view like talking to the test taker. But I think as long as you can see what the student is generally doing and what's going on their computer screen as well, that should probably cover it.
Uh, And I kind of agree with Henry, and this is what I had been doing because I've already started practice exam at my school with many of the competitions. And yes, of course, the students have to be. I know sometimes teachers and the school system thinks that we are peeking into their background or at their home when they're on their camera. Yes, but this should be a requirement for the exam that they must be on their camera with the microphone on. And I would suggest to all the participants and as well as to the panelists, if the student can easily show that their cell phones are totally off, they must show it 5 minutes before, and they should bring a bag with them. This is what we do even for the SAT exams. So why not introduce that as a general process? They must bring a bag and they must place their phone inside and show it that it's all locked, closed, and it's in a bag. I've been doing this with my students all the time. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your responses. So we have a few new proctors who've never virtually proctored before, and it's also their first time participating in the USABO. Do you guys have any tips that you would give them on how to prepare with their students, or if they need to do any preparation ahead of time?
Sorry, Michelle, didn't quite catch the question. Was this about like content preparation or for the specific like proctoring?
Yeah, it's general proctoring preparation. It's their first time proctoring and participating in the USABO. So if there's any suggestions that you have to prepare the students or, that person.
I think the practice exam we ran was super helpful. We cut down check-in time with our procedure from like over an hour to like half an hour for the real thing. So that was I'd say the practice exam is super helpful. Maybe having like a protocol sent out might also be something, or written down might be something that would be helpful going forward. But definitely up to you, especially since it's sort of like a guinea pig year. Yeah.
I think the challenge is there are so many different ways that people do it. We can give general considerations, but we can't say, exactly right with that. And I have a list that I've started with that, and that'll be posted.
Kathy, I would add on to that, like since the panelists are over here, and I know it is sometimes, often it's kind of a little extra work over here, but if we can prepare a list and send it to the students, like as Henry's talking about set of instructions, sending them a Google Docs ahead, saying, okay, where will you put your ID in? How to go step by step on the Google Meets, because sometimes students may not be accustomed to some of those gadgets too. So if we can do that, just a sheet, and just sending them the bullet points, and we can easily do that as a panelist with their stream of where they have their expertise, I would say that.
That would be excellent, yes. This is the first year, gang. You're going to do well, all right? Oh, I know Henry and I, when we started, what was our first practice one was mid-June. And I know we all just shook our heads. I had 63 alums helping me proctor those 500 kids. All right. So, and that in itself was a huge organizational feat. Are there any more questions that we can help you with?
We had one additional question about a Google Meet, and if there was any way you were able to keep the student from being able to see each other.
I would say no at this point. There is one way which I would suggest, but depending upon, say, for example, if there are 30 students, it will be harder. But we can put them into individual breakout rooms, and we can have one student in each breakout room assigned. And that's another way to go, so that the other student is not able to see even, So I can quickly walk you through how you do that. Let me just quickly share the screen. So what you will be doing is, just a second, over here. So what you will be doing is you will be going back on the Meets, and I apologize if my phone is on at this point. Just a second, let me just go back. Since I have closed this piece, sorry about that. Okay. So as you start the Meet, at that point, what you will be doing, students will be joining the Google Meets. And let me just put this off. And here, if you see on the top right panel, you can see this piece over here, these 3 dots. And as you hit that, you will be able to see 3 sections: Q&As, polls, and breakout rooms. As you hit the breakout room, you will be able to set up the breakout room. You can go as many students, like say, for example, if you have 30 students, or 20 students, I would say, just prepare individual breakout, and they will be in their individual breakout rooms appearing for the exam. And if they have a question, they can easily raise their hands for help. And you can easily move yourself, like I can quickly show you. You can easily move yourself into each breakout room. As I open the room, as you can see, I can join any breakout room to ask them a question if they need help. Plus, also, they have their raise hand feature in that breakout room, so they can raise hands for help, and you'll be able to see it even if you are still in the main room. No, you cannot join more than one room at a time. Yes, you do need parental permission to record their session, but you will be definitely sending a form which you have as the students registered for this competition. Maybe we can add that norm that this piece will be recorded. Right, Kathy, if I'm not mistaken?
I have a form that can be available if they want.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, you can see them all. Yes, that's right. That's why I am a little bit ambivalent about, having that feature. But if you think I would rather proctor them, all 20 of them in one room. And since even if their cameras are on, of course, you are there. You are definitely, you're able to see them, what they're actually doing. And I'm not sure, Kathy, at this point, if we can have a second webcam introduced, as Henry was talking about, having a separate device, and so that we can also see what's happening all around near their cameras. So that's another way to go. Parents could refuse. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. You cannot record a breakout rooms. That is true. You cannot. I can easily find out if there is an extension on the Google Suite, because some of these extensions are kind of paid and they're not supported by the school, but I can easily find out for you, and I can send a message to Kathy. This is true, and we have the same rules in my district too. You're right, absolutely. Some of these states are suffering with this problem, not to record these students. But with this competition, with respect to the competition, if the dean of the program, I'm just talking about Kathy, if she sends that information to the parents that the thing will be recorded, I think the school system has to accept it. Am I wrong, Kathy, on that?
It depends on the school system.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? No, if you're in person, you do not have to record at all. I mean, that's the ideal one. Okay, well, I want to thank the panel. My heavens, you were wonderful. Shipla, Henry, Janet, Jason, who had to leave, Jamie, your daughter Samaras. Thank you, everybody. All right. And thanks everybody for being here. All right. We really appreciate it. And we'll get this up on YouTube as soon as possible and address the questions that are in the chat for you. All right. And just know this is a work in progress, because we are working with ALPS. I work with them, Michelle? Probably 100 hours a day. All right. Getting down, trying to get their systems matched with ours. They're used to the math Olympics. And so the biology Olympiad is a tad different. So, but we're going to do the very best we can for all of you. Okay. So thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Okay. And stay safe.
And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Kathy or I. We'll be more than happy to answer them.
Yep, as always, for sure.
Yeah, as always, have a great evening.
It's ending.